welcome to the morning session on the second day. It's my great honor actually to introduce Stephen, and we already know a lot about him. So I just want to add one detail that when I was a student, when we work on some problem, Stephen go back after the discussion, right? Stephen go back and then send me during the evening, send me several pages of scanned notes about that problem. Yeah, I think that is really impressive. That's during my first year. And so that style, I think, helped me a lot during my PhD study. And yeah, it's really very unique. Yeah. So today, he will talk about both our journey so far and also forward. Yeah, let's welcome Stephen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Long weekend. So, okay. Yes, two parts. Oops. The first part really is a celebration of your results at Caltech. And if I have time, I will say a few things about looking forward. So when professors meet their former students, what would they do? Okay, so, oops. That's right. So I'm going to show you some hints from your past papers. So the rule is that if you are a co-author, you should recognize it fast, and then you can say, I did it, right? Any co-author. And your friends is going to say, oh, whoever did it, so whoever is faster, right? Hopefully. So hopefully some of you will recognize them. Only results involving former Netlab students in the audience, I hope. Okay, so everyone else can relax, but you can be friends. So they may not be your most significant results. Many of you have gone to do really fantastic work, but these are the results you did at Caltech that I'm familiar with. I'm sort of on the paper, whatever my contribution, if any. Much more should be included. So I hope some of you might be interested. I think it would be good to include some interesting results for people who are not here, and we can create something that everyone can remember. Okay, so quiz one. Okay, I hope your results will, okay. Quiz one. Sorry. It doesn't work. I will use the arrow. That's right. Yeah, that's right. The typical professor will say, they write A, they mean B. No, they write A, they say B. He meant C, it should be D. That's but anyway. Okay, no one recognizes? Oh, really? Well, then you guys are fast. Okay, anyway. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. All right. Oh, so these are not quizzes. So just a couple of reminiscences. So after this, David and Chung and Sanjay, where's he now? Still with Akamai?
No, I think he left.
He left, right? Okay. Okay. So, so some of you might remember yesterday, what happened to my arrow? Okay. We went to this SC 2002. So Harvey was saying that it was the first time that we participated in Caltech participated in Landspeed record. It's amazing. Only Harvey can do it. So he put together this international team, multiple organizations, multiple continents to build this network so that we can actually run some tests at the conference. It was really exciting. A lot of interesting happened and all of that. So it's a Landspeed record and so on. The most important, I think, most interesting thing with Landspeed record, so this was the previous record. And I think what we did changed the rule of the Landspeed record following. So for example, the previous record I think it was like 83 seconds. So you run your algorithm for congestion control for 83 seconds. And what happens is that something in the network happened, there's some fluctuation. The algorithm, previous algorithms will collapse. They will stop the experiment, and that was the entry. So we said we run for at least an hour. And therefore, there will be a lot of fluctuations, and that's the point of your protocol. Can you deal with that? And interesting. So the rule changed afterwards. OK. So we celebrate, or seen these pictures last night. So this is before the entering the rapid. I have a pointer. So that's ZE right before the pointer. So we have two balls. That's I don't know whether you recognize. Kevin, I think this is David.
No, it's me.
Oh, this is you? This is David? OK. My eyes are so bad. But anyway, this is in the rapid or during that.
Who is the feed? Do anyone remember the feed? I know.
That's right. So the first boat, half of them is underwater. The second one is on the water, but someone is. That's Christine. So this is, and this is after. Everyone's exhausted. Before is pretty good. So we had our little encampment. Oh, that's Loon. Yes. So unfortunately, she, I can give an update afterwards. Unfortunately, she got a COVID a couple of days ago. And she sent her best regards to John, to everyone, and some update later on. And her husband, Jenny, Saltis student, also from Caltech. OK, so that's that. But everyone recognizes this. OK, everyone recognizes this. That's when in lab. Yeah, this is the photo that. Huh?
I didn't know I was co-author.
Yeah, it's a little paper. We didn't really publish. We just did the thing and all that. But anyway, it's amazing, the optical networks. So basically, George, and he recruited his brother, his girlfriend at the time. Oh, working through Christmas and New Year days. It's amazing. They just did everything. I mean, the whole thing, every little piece, they built it. There's optical networks, and he didn't know much about optical networks before. So it's anyway, some of you knew his BMW stories. The same thing. It's amazing. Wait. Oh. I don't know why. So you guys are fast. You saw that? But anyway, you saw that so fast. OK, all right. So I should just, no game. That's Gentile. That's Loon, and that's John. This was 2005. Yeah, the paper is 2005. So basically, we worked on TCP, and then we said, well, can you think of TCP IP in the same framework, right? So you can formulate, you solve the same problem, but you just add a routing, and it turns out you can reduce that to, you can reduce the NP-hard problem to this. So it's NP-hard. If you do single path routing, if you do multi-path routing, then everything's fine. Oh yeah, that's what this said. If you do single path routing, there could be a duality gap. Whereas if you do multi-path routing, everything's fine. Right? I don't know how it works. Oops. So it show up here. Really strange. See? Yeah, what happened? Yeah? So you show up here just with a question, but then it doesn't show. Oh, OK. So you saw that already? So that's Li Jun, Meng, and John.
You know what happened to Meng?
Well, he's the president of Purdue University.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we knew that all along.
That's true, too.
He was going to be president someday.
He is going to be president somewhere sometime. Yes, that's right, exactly. Yes.
I was thinking Princeton, but. Well, maybe,
Oh, OK, president.
He's still young, you know.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah. the potential is somewhere. He can create his own country. Yeah, amazing person. So I saw the hand, but you need to, so that's Kevin, right? Yes, so, yeah. With yes, so I'm let me try. Yes. So the abstract, the abstract is what John showed last night. So basically, yeah. That's in Hong Kong. That's right, exactly. So is fair location always inefficient, which formally boils down to this equation. And it's really beautiful work. It's amazing. Okay, anyway, let me try it again. Let's see. Yes, it works. Okay, it works this time. You guys are too shy. No one? Yeah. Okay, so Kevin recognized that. And the future president. So basically it says for regular networks, you have this really elegant expression. The implication is that for regular networks, the number of equilibriums, you can only have odd number of equilibriums, and not all of them can be locally stable. Really nice. And then he used one in lab to illustrate that experimentally. So great job, both of you. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, you need to out loud. You guys are too shy. All right, good. So Adam talked about that yesterday. So this is a grading geographical load balancing that Adam talked about. You have, say, Google's with multiple data centers, and you can load balance to reduce your cost, to maximally utilize renewables, to reduce electricity bill. Yes. All right. So this was the time when this is, let's see, around 2000. When is it? No, the paper came out late, but this is around 2011 or 11. Yeah. So this was the time when we sort of started to transition to power systems. And this is about energy. So from network performance and stuff, we look at energy, and then from that we looked at smart grid because of John. What happened to the other 98% of the electricity? Now it's what happened to the other 60% electricity. Okay, so this was a party at Adam's house okay, yes. So this is October 2010, Adam's house. There's many Johns. My eyes are so bad. I think John's here, right? Yeah. Okay. So a clear sign of getting old. First, I have to print out what I need to say last night, and then I have to print in 26-point fonts. 26. Anyway, and a lot of the first-generation Netlab students are here. George is here. They came to Caltech wanting to work on networks. And let's look at power system.
Is that Denise?
Denise, that's Denise. That's Denise.
Yeah, Denise.
Annie. Where's she now? Okay, that's a many student. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a group.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Anyone recognize this? That's right. All right. Lin and Li Jun. So this is not their first paper. The first paper was actually what John mentioned yesterday, 2010. So at the time, we really just didn't know much. We were learning and all of that. And the two of them, I think both of you went to a conference, the first Smart Grid Con, which is a conference on power system, but not by power system people, by people from outside. So after they came back, I asked them, how was the conference? They said, everyone was just like us. No one knew what they were talking about. But it was a really fun time that we were learning the basics. Okay. Not doing well on your quiz. No one recognizes? Oops. Yeah, yeah. Yep, and Somaya. Nice paper. So I guess I already have the semi-definite, forgot to hide that. All right, so semi-definite realization. What's this? Okay. Wow, so the friends are really good, faster than Lingwen. That's right. And Wu Fuk, of course, Lina, and that's John's postdoc with Richard.
More importantly, he was Andy Packer's student.
So grandson.
Yeah.
So people should recognize this. That's right. The second net. So this was the very first paper in 2016. We basically have a bunch of, except for George, a bunch of amateurs. We didn't know much what we were doing. And so that's George and Ted. But a lot of people, visiting students, undergraduates, and work on this thing and so on. And then he created this company. If you go to LAX now, you can charge a George smart charger. Okay. Anyone recognize this? That's right. So the friends are faster than Yang Jun and Li Jun. Yes. So this is the smooth, least density first algorithm. Yes. So this is the EV. So when we were starting to do EVs, we first built the system. Well, first come up with a linear program to do that, very simple, and then we build a system, and then we try to analyze. So one of the things that we found is that you do this online algorithm scheduling, and you compare with the theoretical maximum, where if you know the future, the gap is really, really small. And the first person to actually experimentally, simulations, test that was a visiting student from Lund. He's amazing. He did a lot of work. So we were really puzzled what you won't know. He's undergraduate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We've
But
got a lot of Lund people.
that's right. It's the same program that I guess you and Richard set up, and I have a couple of them really fantastic. And then basically we analyze some of the algorithms motivated from the infrastructure. Okay. Let's see if he's in the audience. Okay, yes. Very good. So we build the infrastructure. After it becomes a paid service, we cannot, before that, everyone charged for free. We encourage people to come and charge, and people from the neighborhood, after work, they will come to Caltech and charge, so that we get data, we build a system and everything. And George and Chung and Ted and many people are involved. And then it became a paid service, so we cannot just play with the testbed. And then we got a grant that Zeg and Tongxin and some undergraduate built a software on top of the physical infrastructure to provide data. So basically, you capture the real-time charging data and all this other data. So we put it on the web, then people use it. And this is how you can use the data. Some examples of how you can use the data. Okay. Yes. Yes, okay. So this is, and then we looked at this cascading failure. So this is a real example of cascading failure, the sequence events, the sequence of lines that breaks. And then Daniel and Cheng published this really nice conference paper, which was something that we thought got to be true. This was 2017. So we had a conjecture back in 2013, but no one really worked on that. And then they proved, it's very simple to prove. Moreover, they discovered this really nice expression that shows if if you have a network and this transmission line breaks, what is the line flow on, because you have a power flow distribution on your network, and then one line breaks. The power flow is going to redistribute. And therefore, it may exceed the line flow at other lines, and then that's going to cause cascading failure. So they have this really nice formula that shows exactly how to do it. It's amazing compared with what's in the literature. Okay, let's see. Almost done with the quiz. That's Fengyu, yes. It's, again, a really beautiful work. Okay, so we know this convex realization. There's no guarantee it will work. So you can solve a realization, you get an infeasible point. But empirically, it seems that it almost always works. You can show that, so Zavar showed that this is the NP-hard problem. And therefore, how do you reconcile that is hard in theory, but it seems easy in practice, right? Easy in the sense that if you solve realization, it seems always to work, except for counterexamples from Ileon that shows you can have a gap of 13%. You have this nice paper. On the other hand, if you run local algorithm, again, very typically, you will get global solution. And therefore, how to reconcile the gap? So he came up with this Lyapunov-like condition that is almost necessary and sufficient to guarantee the two conditions that we observe in practice. That if you run realization, it's going to work. If you run local algorithm, you are going to get global solution. Yeah, so, very nice. Okay, so I think, okay, the last one, I think. You guys are way too shy, you know? All right, that's right. So that's Luke. So what he showed is that if you look at the current electricity market, if you allow users to offer flexibilities, let's say you have a charging garage, and they can provide flexibility to the grid, the users may become worse off. So it's interesting. How do you, when you offer flexibility to the system, there will be positive benefit. The issue is who gets the benefit. Is it going to be the user or going to be the charging, or the generators, for example? And then Luke went on to lead a project that built another system at Caltech that Yiheng is going to talk about afterwards. Okay, so several of you have seen this, but many of you have not. So, okay. So I want to, so we know when you have temperature rise, you can cause all kinds of crises, right? We see that in the news on a weekly basis. And we know that temperature rise is due to greenhouse gas emissions, driven by economy, enabled by energy. If you look at energy, then you need to electrify transportation and generate electricity from renewable sources. So we're familiar with the story. I just want to connect the dots to look at the underlying data. I think it's still, even though this is familiar, it's still amazing to see the data because 50 years ago, scientists warned us about all these crises. And only now we are sort of starting to act. Okay, so let's look at the data. So this is the temperature and atmospheric carbon dioxide over the last 800,000 years. So they vary. You can see the strong correlation. And the scientists understand the mechanism, so it's causal, it's not just correlation. This is the record for the last 800,000 years without the last couple hundred years, which we'll look at later on. So there's a very strong causation. And if you look at the temperature, this is the temperature for the last couple hundred years. So since Industrial Revolution, the global average temperature has increased by about 1.2 C. And there's a rapid increase since the 50s. This is the average temperature. If you look at the local temperature, it can be as worse as 7 degrees. So we will expect the carbon dioxide to have shot up, which it did. So this is the record for the last 10,000 years. And you see that for the last a couple hundred years, 1900 and so on, right? So this really sharp increase. This is for the last 10,000 years. This is the last 800,000 years with a last couple hundred years. It's not only the rate. Previously, the previous P is less than 300 parts per million. Now it's 420. So these are the emitters, annual emitters. So Europe, US, China shot up really rapidly since the 80s. This is the cumulative. US, Europe, China is catching up very rapidly. So why are we emitting so much? Because of rising standard of living. So this is GDP per capita, GDP per capita emission, emission per capita by consumption. So it's a sort of fair measure. Singapore, US, China, India. This is the GDP for the last 2,000 years. So the x-axis of this graph is not time. It's wealth. Energy inequality, for example, US emit 15.5 tons of CO2 per capita. Our neighbor, 3.4. Australian, 13.8. Its neighbor, 2.3, and so on. So if you look at energy emission, right, in the US, 82% in 2021, 82% of emissions due to energy. If you look at energy, then electricity generation and transportation, they emit more than half of all greenhouse gases. They consume 65% of all the primary energies. So it's the nuclear, coal, gas, petroleum, renewables, hydro, everything. Okay. So there's hope. So the cost for generation. So if you want to have clean power, you need two things at least. You need three things at least. Generation, lots of storage, and then control. All right. So the by 2019, PV and wind already become the lowest cost electricity generation source. So the drop is rapid. From 2015 to 2022, the PV capacity, the global PV capacity increased by 4.4 times. The manufacturing capacity increased by 5.3. The projection in 2030, so 2030 that year, the projection is that if you just look at globally what people said they will do, the government said what they will do, then the PV capacity in 2030 is going to have addition of 500. If we want to keep the path, what's called net zero emissions path by 2050, which will allow 1.5C, then we need, for that year, the capacity is 825 gigawatt to be added to the global PV capacity. The manufacturing capacity is expected to be way higher. So many implications of that. Batteries. From 1990 to 2023, the cost dropped by 99%. If you look at the slope actually has changed. So from 2003 and 2023 is 29% learning rate. And there are different paths and so on. So it depends on who you talk to. Usually the climate news are all pretty bad news. Many people don't think 1.5 is still possible. Some still. But I guess the good news, like what Adam showed yesterday, the good news is if we had done nothing, it would have been this path, but we are bending the curve. So this is a study from Oxford. If you look at the countries, what they have achieved, what they have put in the law, in policy documents or their pledges to have zero carbon by mid-century, it now covers 83% of global emission, 91% of GDP, 80% of populations. So the challenge, which I'm very interested in, is that I think the two most important determining factors of this energy transition, right? It's going to be the political system, political culture, economic system, and economic culture. The technology is, of course, important. It's the easiest of the three. So if you look at political, this is very simplistic caricature. You have China and US are, in a way, two extreme points in many senses. Other countries are sort of complex combinations. And they have their characteristics and all of that, right? So the implication of energy transition is what I'm very interested in. And then you ask, are there examples, if we want to have zero carbon by mid-century, the infrastructure deployment, just the infrastructure deployment is daunting. And then if you ask, have there been examples in the past of transformation of similar speed and scale? I can think of two. One is the internet, which transformed entirely, not just the infrastructure, but multiple industries over 2 to 3 decades since 90s. It's just, for those who are old enough, it's just amazing. Okay. Starting in Silicon Valley, spread across the globe, with implications just everything, is driven entirely by the private sector. And that is because the transformation is extremely profitable. There have been large markets before that got transferred on the internet, say selling books and then music, advertisement, retail. These were huge markets before. Now, over the last 2 to 3 decades, transferred to the internet. But also because internet technologies are cheaper, faster, better. It created new technologies.
Yeah, but the right investment at the front end from the government made this possible.
Sure. So
We have to remember that
absolutely.
research at the front end can make these things happen. Right?
Yes. So
Might have happened otherwise, but Bell Labs wasn't going to do it.
yeah, no, absolutely. So internet started in '69, started as 4 nodes, SRI, UCLA, Santa Barbara, and Utah. And apparently, they asked Caltech to be the 5th node. And of course, Caltech is so intelligent, say no. So that was in '69. But then, I guess to people outside R&D, internet started in the '90s. So you're absolutely right. Before the '90s, internet was the government, DARPA, and then NSF, and so on. Now, if you think about energy transition, it's not very clear there are lucrative markets that would naturally transfer to the new system. Right? One thing I guess I can think of is EV. It makes sense to have EVs. So this will happen. It took much longer than expected, but it will happen. Outside that, ultimately, the reason we need to do energy transition is carbon. But we don't put a value on carbon. Even if there's a value, it's not very lucrative. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so 2006, before 2006, largest companies. This is 2017, now it's the media, right? GDP is bigger than many countries, so that's the impact. Right, okay, I talked about this. So if market is not sufficient to drive the transition at the speed and scale required, then government policy. So that's the. So this is the extreme poverty, which is $1.9 per day from 81 to 2017. So China essentially eliminated extreme poverty, 800 million people. Over the same time, globally, it has decreased, but large majority due to the policy in China. It's entirely driven by the government. That's a challenge. Well, it took 12 years to build a transmission line, if ever. We put in a lot of rules and regulations, protections, for good reasons. But there are also unintended consequences as well from good things, just like the internet. So how do you balance the protection of minorities with the benefit of majorities? It's tricky if everyone has the best of intentions. And yes, so I think that's my let me just close with this slide. Right. Okay. Looking forward. So we look at energy transition, right? What will be the fundamental assumptions that will be violated? Many of you know this. Inverter-based resource control, if you don't know what it is, it doesn't matter. This is huge. This is going to change the infrastructure in fundamental ways. And therefore, there's a lot of modeling, learning, control, stability, optimization issues. Electricity market, Adam and many people have been working on this. And again, if we're going to do this energy transition, then most of the resources with zero marginal cost, which fundamentally violate how we design and run the network today. There will be a lot of volatility, again, very different from today, that you need to explicitly trade off the risk. It's going to be decentralized. Again, today it's very much centralized. And then, okay, so 50 years on, today's energy decision makers, once again face, you can read faster than I can. All right. So the point is, the macro changes that we saw earlier. So I'm very interested to understand more. I don't know too much, but I think it's going to be critical. Energy startups, very, very difficult. Much more difficult to IT, finance, anything else. Because those things are virtual. Virtuals are much easier to scale. So here's another. Sorry for taking so much time. Here's another. So some of you may know this virtual bidding in electricity market. So it started to offer, 10 years ago or around 10 years ago, they started to, electricity markets allow people to basically participate without having any assets. So you just play with prices. They have prices, real-time prices, right? Apparently now, if you have any startup that go into virtual bidding space, you're going to make money. Everyone's making money. Who's paying? The renewable generators and the users, utilities, they are paying. It makes sense because as we have more and more renewables, the volatility and everything increases the cost. Instead of having the generators and users deal with the cost, you have these virtual bidders that will manage the risk so that everyone's cost will be lower. They make money, but everyone's cost will be lower. And that's why it makes sense. And then you say, oh, if you look at the virtual bid, if you look at the energy market, the virtual bidding, the small industry, the estimate, I don't know how accurate it is, they make about 1% to 2% of the revenue. You say, oh, okay, that sounds reasonable. It's like finance. It sounds reasonable as aggregate. The profit per person or per firm, or same per person, is way higher. It's just like Facebook, whatever the right. The revenue, I think David told me at some point, is at least one or more than $1 million per employee is the $3 million per employee.
No,
Cost?
cost. Revenue is even higher.
It's even higher. Okay. Anyway, so my point is, my point is that virtual industries are extremely scalable, and one consequence of that, or one manifestation of that, is that the revenue per person is really, revenue or profit per person is really high. When you involve infrastructure, That's not possible. It's not as scalable. And this is one of the reasons why energy startup is so expensive, so difficult. Sorry it takes so long, but thank you.
Yeah, I'll take 2 more questions.
You basically said that it's much harder to do electricity startups because of the cost law, right? But if you go back in the early 90s, 80s, right? Your example of the valuable companies are these days the companies that sit on the infrastructure that was already built. Like there was a point where Cisco was the most valuable company in the world before the dot-com crash, right? And was projected to be the first company to reach 1 trillion. It didn't happen. But the key point was in the internet world, the infrastructure companies also came as startups, right? So what is the challenge here in the electricity world where the infrastructure companies, which obviously were cost intensive back in the day for infrastructure and are still cost intensive, but happened in the internet world, but it's getting harder in the energy world?
Right, okay, so great question. So I think a couple 2 points. So first a disclaimer. These are the things I want to study in more detail, find data and just quantify everything so that this is just my impression, and therefore it could be wrong. But my impression is that the difference in the internet is that we have decades, well, more than a decade, AT&T, right? More than 100 years to build those infrastructure. So there's already a basic infrastructure. When infrastructure started, even in the 60s, 70s, and so on, they run on telephone network. And then, the big infrastructure that got built during the internet transition is the wireless. Now, of course, the basic infrastructure also changed from switches, right, 5ESS, some of you may know, telephone switches, to routers and so on. So that transition, but it's transition from the existing infrastructure. It's not from zero. Secondly, is the wireless. But wireless is extremely profitable because of all the good reasons, right? So that's one. Secondly, the infrastructure in power, in energy, is much more expensive than the infrastructure in, right? And then secondly, somehow we humans are much more willing to pay for clicks, video, right? Right? So, and therefore, where will the profit come from? It's much harder.
So, Stephen, I was impressed with this comment that you said, okay, in the internet, a lot of other industries moved to the internet, right? And that's part of the reason it
yes, because it's extremely profitable. That's the thing, right? Why would people move? Yeah.
So, couldn't this happen with, say, the oil and gas industry? I mean, in terms of vehicles, for example, as long as they need to get cheap enough, right? But then at some point, yeah.
Sure. Okay, so first of all, you need to get cheap enough, right? So EV, I think it would happen, but whether it will be much cheaper than the traditional car is unclear. Right now, we just hope to get parity, maybe. But even if the parity, there are many other benefits. Once you have driven the EV, you won't go back. So and so on. So and therefore, that's why I think it will happen, even though the profit is not going to be as lucrative as the other, right? Other than that, anyone think of any other potentially lucrative energy startup? We should do that if you think of any. It's not clear. I mean, EV, you can ask George. It's tough. It's amazing what George and team and everyone has achieved. It's amazing. Yes. Okay, well, thank you.